Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. We've got multiple news items in today's video on a variety of topics, including a follow-up to Wednesday's episode and my discussion on Prime, specifically the ratings that came out later in the day. We'll examine the numbers and what they mean. Plus, Kyle Busch fans remember last year when he announced he was closing the doors of his Rowdy energy drink. On Wednesday, we learned that the two-time Cup Series champion is back in the energy drink game. Plus, we'll talk about a bombshell report in The Athletic that came out yesterday on NASCAR CEO Jim France planning to field a Cup Series entry in the July race at Sonoma. We'll examine the story and go back in time to 2022 and comments from Denny Hamlin that shows this isn't anything new and the lack of transparency and hints of favoritism should be concerning to the teams and the fans. Also in today's video, I'll share my latest compilation of who's the most popular driver on social media. I put together my first list 6 months ago. We've got the new updated numbers, and there's one surprising name in the top 5. And we'll wrap up with our Nashville 5 fun facts and figures. However, before we get to those numbers, let's go back to Wednesday and my video where I talked at length about Prime's coverage and everybody really being a fan of it. Well, later in the day, the official numbers came out. It's important to note that the 2025 Coca-Cola 600 airing on Prime was a big moment in NASCAR history. That's because it marked a shift in sports media becoming the first non-NFL sporting event to be measured by Nielsen and air exclusively on a streaming platform in Amazon Prime Video. This milestone was big for NASCAR and sports broadcasting more broadly because it indicated the start of more serious measurement and accountability for streaming exclusive sports outside of the NFL. Prior to that, only NFL games like Thursday Night Football have had consistent Nielsen-tracked data on streaming platforms. Most other sports like college basketball, NHL, MLB, and MLS have lacked transparent viewership metrics unless selectively disclosed by the networks. While the measuring process itself is a big deal, the more important thing and the bottom line is, what do the viewership metrics reveal from Sunday's race? But before we look at this year's Prime numbers, it's important to provide some context and look at the viewer numbers from previous years for this season's longest race. Going back to the 2015 Coca-Cola 600, which aired on Fox, it recorded 6.41 million viewers. As you can see in this graph, there's been a steady decline in viewership since. By 2023, that number had dropped by almost half to 3.33 million. Last year, 3.1 million tuned in to the network telecast for the rain-shortened event on the 1.5-mile oval. Interestingly, despite the drop, last year's number still surpassed every Cup Series race on cable in the previous 4 years. Going into the 2025 race on the streaming platform, most experts believed there would be a continued decline from last year's number, and there was. According to Nielsen, 2.72 million tuned in on Sunday for the 600-mile race, a decrease by 12% from 2024. While some might view that drop as concerning, upon closer inspection, it's not when you consider this. In the 8 races carried on cable in 2025, the viewership average is 2.52 million, or 8% less than Prime's debut on Sunday. And that's just part of the story. The Nielsen numbers also reveal the audience who watched the race is notably younger. Among viewers in the coveted 18 to 34 demographic, NASCAR on Prime averaged 229,000 and was the most watched non-broadcast NASCAR race for that demographic since 2022. Those same types of trends continued for the 18 to 49 demographic, which averaged 800,000 viewers, and the 25 to 54 demographic, which averaged 1 million viewers. In each case, it was the most watched non-broadcast NASCAR race for the respective demographic since 2022. It's also important to point out Sunday's audience on Prime Video posted a median age of 55.8, which is more than 6 years younger than audience watching NASCAR Cup Series races on linear networks with an age of 61.9. All of those numbers combined show NASCAR's debut on Prime, while a drop from last year's total of just over 3 million and part of a continuing trend from previous years, is better than most would have guessed. Experts had cautioned that there might be an initial drop-off in viewership starting with Charlotte Motor Speedway's Crown Jewel race, similar to what the NFL experienced in its inaugural year on Prime in 2022. That first season, the league averaged shy of 9.6 million viewers, which was down more than a quarter from the prior year on Fox and NFL Network, and the least watched season of the franchise since 2013. Since that time, the audience has steadily grown, rising to 11.9 million in 2023 and 13.2 million in 2024. That latter mark basically even with the first pre-Amazon year in 2021 of 13.3 million. The goal is obviously to steadily shift more fans to Prime Video and capture a younger, more digital native audience. With the numbers from NASCAR's first race on Prime, it appears they've already checked one box by connecting with the younger demographic. Now the question is if they can maintain and possibly improve on the already solid numbers from the Coca-Cola 600 in the next 4 races on the streamer. Appropriately enough, we'll get those answers from Nielsen. Moving on to our next story that also came out on Wednesday about Kyle Busch. It's undeniable that Busch has some of the most loyal fans in NASCAR, Rowdy Nation. They'll support him in whatever he does on and off the track. When he was the driver of the number 18 M&M's car at Joe Gibbs Racing, they ate M&M's. When he left, many of them stopped. In 2020, fans of the two-time champ were given a unique opportunity to not only consume a product that their favorite driver endorsed, but one he owned in Rowdy Energy. For the next several years, the energy drink brand regularly appeared with the driver on his fire suit, on the side of his car or truck, and when he made trips to Victory Lane. The company even started to bring on other athletes or drivers to endorse the product, including John Hunter Nemechek and dirt racing star Rico Abreu. However, unexpectedly in January 2024, Busch surprised fans when he announced they were closing the doors of the business. He posted on social media, quote, "Like many other consumer brands, the headwinds have proven to be too strong, and it makes the most sense to end the journey so I can remain focused on my family and my racing career," end quote. And just like that, Rowdy Energy was gone. Now, a little over a year later, Busch is back in the energy drink game, but this time it's in the more traditional way as an endorser of the product. On Wednesday, Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal reported that the 40-year-old is now working with Anheuser-Busch and its new drink, Form Energy. Think about that. Busch working with Busch. It's a partnership that makes total sense. And now Rowdy Nation has a new source of energy. Moving on to our next story, and there was a bombshell report that came out yesterday by my friends at The Athletic, Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck. According to their report, NASCAR CEO and co-owner Jim France was set to financially support a Cup Series entry through Spire Motorsports for the road course race in July at Sonoma. The car would have been driven by Jack Aitken, a 29-year-old road course specialist already employed by France on his Action Express racing team in IMSA, which, as we all know, is owned by NASCAR. The deal was close to being signed, sealed, and delivered last week. However, according to the report, it fell apart after Gluck and Bianchi started questioning the arrangement. Unsurprisingly, those in the garage didn't like the thought of racing against a car owned by the series. The conflict of interest is one thing. The organization France made the arrangement with is another. In 2023, NASCAR partnered with Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports in a special entry for the 24-hour of Le Mans. The announcement of that partnership early in 2022 came with hardly any advance notice to the rival manufacturers of Ford, Toyota, and the teams. At the time, I joined other reporters and talked with Denny Hamlin about it at Circuit of the Americas, and he didn't sugarcoat what he thought about the news.
I don't know, it just doesn't... Finding out through a press conference is not okay. We have too many people in place. NASCAR has too many executives for that to slip through the cracks. Not that it slipped through the cracks, but like, where's the transparency of it?
So with that as the background and that already existing relationship between Hendrick and NASCAR, France naturally tried to partner with Chevrolet and Hendrick in his latest venture. However, due to HMS already being at the 4-car limit, France opted to work with another bow tie team, Inspire, which has their 3 cars and, more importantly, an alliance with Hendrick. The car would have used a Hendrick engine. Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson confirmed the plans to The Athletic, but downplayed the significance of the relationship. "I didn't really even think it was that big of a deal. I didn't even think it was that deep." Others in the sport obviously didn't view it the same way. As a result, France backed off from pursuing the idea. Despite France's withdrawal, it's easy to see how those in the garage would continue to have concerns about a similar scenario happening again in the future, especially knowing the Chevy team and the sanctioning body have already worked together in the past and just tried to do it again. I know when I read this story, I couldn't help but think about the IndyCar controversy in recent weeks with Roger Penske and the perceived conflict of interest and the actions he took with Tim Cindric and other executives. So to me, Jim France trying to pursue a Cup team is concerning. I can see why the teams were not happy about it. This is something we need to pay attention to because I don't think that this story is over. Let's move on to our next story for the day, and it's something I've been working on this week. and that's identifying who is the most popular driver when it comes to social media following. I did something similar in December of last year, or 6 months ago. As you can see in the graphic, we have all 36 Cup Series drivers listed, and it breaks it down by their following on X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Clearly, Kyle Busch is the most popular driver on social media with a total of 2.12 million followers. Coming in second on our list is the sport's actual voted most popular driver, Chase Elliott, with his total of 1.94 million followers. As I mentioned, I did this same type of measurement in December, but didn't include YouTube. Now I have, and as you can see, John Hunter Nemechek comes in at number 3 with 1.74 million followers, but as you can also see, his specific numbers are heavily skewed with his 1.41 million YouTube subscribers. What's interesting is when you go look at his actual YouTube page, the videos on the channel don't get a ton of views. In fact, over the last month, he's only had a couple of them that have received 1,000 views. The others are even lower than that. But when you examine his page a little closer, you can see he picked up most of his subscribers on a couple of massive shorts that he posted on pit stops a year ago, including one that received a whopping 38 million views. Another received 10 million, and yet another received 4.5 million. So he obviously got a lot of followers and subscribers from those short videos. Next on our list is Kyle Larson, and he is followed by Denny Hamlin. Rounding out the top 10 are Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and I think an interesting one in Austin Dillon. Having a little fun with it, when looking at it by manufacturer, it breaks down into 4 Chevrolets, 3 Toyotas, and 3 Fords. I'll plan on doing this again in 6 months at the end of the season. And now it's time for our Nashville 5 fun facts and figures. This weekend's race is the 2800th NASCAR Cup Series race. This weekend marks the 5th running of a NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville Superspeedway, 2021 through 2025. 4 different drivers have won at Nashville Superspeedway in the NASCAR Cup Series. Kyle Larson did it in 2021, Chase Elliott in 2022, Ross Chastain in 2023, and Joey Logano last year. This race last year went 31 laps past the scheduled distance, the most extra laps ever in a Cup race due to 5 overtime finish. And as a result, the 2024 Nashville race was 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 54 seconds, the longest race of the 2024 season. Here's to hoping we don't have a repeat like that this year. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. I want to get your thoughts. Let's go back to Wednesday and the Prime TV ratings. What do you think of the charts I showed on how the viewer numbers have declined since 2015 and how the Prime ratings from Sunday's race actually stack up better than the average of the 8 races shown on FS1 this year? From yesterday, what do you think of the news that Jim France was trying to run an open car for the upcoming race at Sonoma? Does it bother you, or do you think it should be like Penske and IndyCar, and it shouldn't be a big deal? And lastly, let me know what you think of the drivers' social media following numbers. Any surprises in there? Thanks again for checking out the latest video and supporting the channel. I really and truly appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the race weekend at Nashville, and we'll see you again on Monday.